the place to be had, I guess, again, come out of conversations with the board of directors and even staff. And I really do want to credit our staff in the office and outside for coming up with ideas, which happens all the time. And so the staff had a lot of input into it. And I think that it wasn't that there was anything particularly special about this year being the place to be, because the Stampede is always the place to be. It's an example of a group of volunteers who are focused on a really specific place. And you know, there's lots of attributes about the Medicine Hat Stampede that may make it similar to a service club, but one thing that really distinguishes it is that we actually do have a very strong physical existence. There's about 90 acres here, and there's several buildings, and we're here in Pioneer Village, and so the physical existence or place is really important to us, and so it just seemed like a natural thing to do at this point in time. We hadn't really focused on it being the place, and so we thought it was about time. The Medicine Hat Stampede was incorporated under the Companies Act, so we do have shareholders, of which there are 145, but that's kind of the tip of the iceberg. They're the sort of super volunteers, and then there's a whole big, large group of people that help them out. Something like 35 committees. We usually talk a relative or a friend into coming out and helping at certain times. I think one of the best ways is to just maybe observe or get to know somebody on a committee, and that way you can kind of you know, feel your way into it a bit and follow your interests. And that's the way most people do become involved. It's a friend of a friend or a relative and that sort of thing, and so we always encourage it. And so I do think that a fair estimate is probably around 600 that help out. So that's like 1% of the population. So it's wonderful. And we always need more help. Well, our format often stays the same, and so that part won't change very much. I think there's a couple of important times that I should point out. Friday night rodeo will start at 8 o'clock, and part of the reason for that is to just kind of time it a little bit better with the fireworks in the evening. And then the Thursday afternoon rodeo will start just a little bit later at 5:15. And so there's a couple of little changes there, but in terms of the entertainment, the night show entertainment, we're going to lead off with Corb Lund and High Valley on Wednesday, Tanya Tucker on Thursday, Joan Jett and the Blackhearts along with the Guess Who on Saturday. So those acts are certainly different. Night shows tend to be you know, different each year, so that certainly adds to the variety. And so too, we're fortunate to have people that have such a diverse set of interests. There's a horse show that comes up beforehand. Stampede Summer Jam has local talent. They're up on the big stage on the Monday of Stampede Week. There's better living and visual arts, so that certainly adds to the variety. And so too is the case with free entertainment. And so we've got some entertainment out of the States, musical entertainment. We've got one called Cirque Zuma Zuma, which is, it's not Cirque du Soleil, but it has that element to it, and it's really quite exotic, so I think it'll be really interesting. And there's, of course, there's the format of the rodeo is the same, but the competitors are always different, and so we're excited to see. Our draw will be known probably tomorrow. And the draw is who's up in our rodeo. And the one thing that we're excited to watch for is to see what champions we get out of Calgary, which was recently on. And you know, we've got a great summer rodeo that often has competitors that make it to the National Finals Rodeo in Las Vegas. So that's always changing. And like I say, the format is the same and predictable, and I think people kind of like that part. But the forms of entertainment have enough uniqueness to them that I'm sure it will appeal to everyone.
I think the parade is the way for the exhibition and Stampede to reach out to the community, get the community involved at various levels. It's always great to highlight the honorary parade marshals, and which is this year the first responders that were involved in a lot of the firefighting that happened last year, as well as EMT, EMS. The other aspect of the parade too is to you know, just make sure that the community is aware of the agriculture and how important that agriculture and ranching and farming is to the community, and just allow everyone to come out for the morning and have a good time. Every year the parade has the the opportunity to break different sections out. You'll have the military, you'll have the dignitaries at the front of the parade, you'll have a lot of horses, you'll have the bands. Of course, we have the honorary parade marshals. You know, one of the big things is having that diversity. You'll see some agriculture equipment, you'll see floats, you'll see acrobatics. It's all over the place. You'll see antique cars. So there's no limit to what you can see in this parade. Last year we had an individual riding a Brahma bull. It was amazing. I don't think he's here this year, but you never know what's going to show up, and it's always a great time to be had by all.
The honorary parade marshals are Fire Chief Kelly Myers from the Cypress County and Fire Chief Brian Stout from the City of Medicine Hat Fire Department. And the Board of Directors always contemplates who their special guest and honorary parade marshal will be. And this year, as they reflected on the kind of year that we have had over the past 12 months and the difficulties and the tragedies, especially last fall with wildfires, it occurred to the group that really the coming together of Cypress County and Medicine Hat to deal with these tragedies was a very, very good example of bringing urban and rural people together, and in this particular case, protecting urban and rural people. And so the Medicine Hat exhibition in Stampede has always seen itself as a way to bring those two groups together, and so we couldn't think of a better way to symbolize that I guess bringing together the two groups. The thing that we also want to emphasize is that although it is the fire departments that we're honoring, that we really do recognize all the emergency services because they are critical and I think would probably by most people's standards be considered unsung heroes. They're somewhat perhaps even taken for granted at times, and so it just seemed like a really good opportunity to change that a little bit and show that we don't take them for granted but really appreciate all of their efforts. So it was such a unanimous decision when it was first presented and talked about. It was an informal conversation, one thing led to another, and by the end of the meeting everybody was thrilled that conclusion had been reached.
Right now, I'm thinking close to 100 volunteers we have. There's various different sections that they all work in, and they work really good together. We have volunteers in the motorcycle club, the radio club, the parade lineup club, or section, and basically anybody else that we could fit in to do different jobs. We need lots of volunteers for this section.
We're thrilled with the way the Pioneer Village has developed over the last 2 or 3 decades, and it's again a wonderful example of a main street in a small town with a fire hall and school, church, general store. There's even an old garage or a replica garage, and again I do think it is important to remember our history, and it is amazing to me that in spite of the modern age of instant communication and cell phones and you know, it seems like an iPhone has been around for most of our lives, and yet it's only 10 years. But in spite of that, it is amazing to me how many young people are keenly interested in the history, and so we don't want to miss the opportunity to help them know what things were like at the turn of the century, which is really when this area was being settled. I think the majority of the homesteaders in this area are probably between 1908 and maybe 1912. A pretty incredible influx of mostly Europeans that may have come directly from Europe or through the United States and into this area when the Homestead Act was proclaimed. And so this little area is quite a replica of that time, and so it's a really important part of local history. We're really pleased with the way that country and the city has developed over the last number of years, and I think it will be a wonderful window into agriculture for people that stop by to see it. So we're thrilled that we have a committee that's so dedicated to demonstrating to people what farm and ranch life is really like, and was like too. There's some history in that area as well, but it tends to focus a little bit more on the modern era. and gives, I think, particularly young people a chance to see what does actually happen on farms and ranches. And I think it's also important to realize that it happens responsibly. There are some of our, I guess you would call them colleagues in the fair business that are emphasizing what it will be like even just a few decades from now. Calgary Stampede has something called Journey 2050, and at that point there'll be 9 billion people on the face of the earth. And even as recent as 50 years ago, there were 3 billion. And so when you consider the magnitude of the change, it's going to be extremely important that people understand where food and fresh water comes from. And so in our own small way, I think the country and the city is the start of that for the Medicine Hat Stampede. It's something that we're going to, I think, be emphasizing in the years ahead as an agricultural society, just how important it will be to have safe food and fresh water. Well, I think it's important for people in Medicine Hat and the community and the district to be able to reflect back on how things were done many, many years ago and how this area was settled. By, I guess, human history standards, we're very young. And in spite of that, there's been some incredible advancements that have been made. But when this area, the country was settled, horses and cowboys were a huge part of it, certainly agriculture. And so I think that by having cowboy culture and rodeo heritage, it really allows people to reflect on the past and to sort of embrace the importance of remembering those that came before us.